The video opens with sweeping shots of Spain's golden age. Mighty galleons cutting through the Atlantic waves, their hulls heavy with silver and gold from the Americas, bustling ports alive with merchants trading exotic goods, and Madrid's grandeur rising as the capital of a global empire where the sun never set. The wealth dazzles the screen, a nation seemingly destined for eternal prosperity. But as the imagery fades, the tone shifts: empty treasuries, bankruptcy decrees, and the hollow echo of a kingdom drowning in debt. Fast forward to modern times. Unemployment lines stretching across city streets, shuttered businesses, and young Spaniards leaving their homeland in search of opportunity abroad. The narration cuts in with solemn weight. Spain once commanded an empire where the sun never set. Its wealth dazzled the world, yet centuries later, the nation faced crippling debt and economic collapse. How did Spain rise so high, only to fall so hard? The words hang over the contrasting visuals, pulling the audience into a story that spans centuries, from imperial glory to financial ruin. The hook intensifies as the camera lingers on the human toll: peasants of the past crushed by inflation from silver influx, mirrored by modern families losing homes during the 2008 property crash. The central question emerges with urgency. Was Spain's downfall the inevitable result of external pressures like endless wars and global competition, reckless spending by rulers and governments, or deeper structural flaws that hollowed out its economy across generations? The opening leaves viewers gripped, compelled to uncover how a nation that once stood at the pinnacle of wealth and power could unravel into cycles of debt, crisis, and decline, and what lessons its rise and fall hold for the world today. Spain's financial story begins in the 16th century, when the nation rose to unprecedented heights of wealth and power, fueled by the treasures of its vast empire. Silver and gold poured in from the Americas, filling royal coffers and financing grand palaces, armies, and fleets that projected Spanish dominance across Europe and beyond. Global trade routes expanded under its control, and military victory cemented its reputation as the most formidable empire of its age. Madrid became the beating heart of this prosperity, a capital that symbolized ambition and grandeur. Yet beneath the glittering surface, cracks were already forming: an economy overly dependent on colonial wealth, inflation driven by the influx of silver, and a neglect of domestic industry that left Spain vulnerable. What seemed like unstoppable ascent carried within it the seeds of decline. This video will trace Spain's financial journey from imperial riches to modern crises, exploring how cycles of boom and bust defined its history. We will uncover the causes of repeated bankruptcies, the human toll of inflation and debt, and the echoes of these patterns in Spain's more recent struggles, from the property bubble of the 2000s to the unemployment crisis that shook its society. The tone is urgent and dramatic, but balanced, weaving historical authority with human stories: peasants crushed by rising prices centuries ago, mirrored by modern families losing homes during financial collapse. By the end, viewers will see that Spain's rise and fall is not just a national tale, but a universal lesson about the fragility of prosperity, the dangers of over-reliance on external wealth, and the importance of building sustainable foundations for economic strength in a globalized world. Spain's financial journey begins with its meteoric rise in the 16th century, when silver and gold from the Americas poured into its treasuries, financing wars, palaces, and the grandeur of empire. Galleons laden with riches docked in Seville, fueling Spain's dominance in global trade across Europe, Asia, and the Americas, and for a time, the nation seemed unstoppable. Yet beneath the glittering surface, hidden problems were already taking root. The influx of silver triggered inflation that eroded the purchasing power of ordinary citizens, while dependence on colonial wealth left domestic industry neglected and fragile. The emotional contrast was stark: overflowing treasuries and royal splendor on one side, peasants struggling under rising prices on the other, foreshadowing the imbalance that would eventually unravel Spain's prosperity. As the empire expanded, military overreach became its undoing. Endless wars against rivals like France, England, and the Ottoman Empire drained resources, forcing repeated bankruptcies that tarnished Spain's financial credibility. Reliance on imports grew as domestic production weakened, agriculture declined, and industry lagged behind other European powers. By the modern era, echoes of this decline resurfaced in the 2008 financial crisis, when Spain's property bubble burst, banks collapsed, and unemployment soared. Families lost homes, youth unemployment rose above 50%, and protests filled Madrid streets, mirroring centuries-old frustrations of citizens trapped in cycles of hardship. The final act of Spain's story is one of lessons and struggle for recovery. Historical patterns reveal a nation caught in repeated cycles of boom and bust, from imperial collapse to modern debt crises. Recovery efforts in the 21st century included EU bailouts, austerity measures, and gradual stabilization, but these came at a heavy social cost. Spain's persistent struggles highlight the vulnerabilities of interconnected economies, showing how one nation's debt crisis can ripple across the Eurozone and beyond. Though Spain survives, the scars remain. Inequality deepens, immigration drains talent, and distrust in institutions lingers. Yet amid the turmoil, resilience endures, as communities rebuild and innovators strive to carve out a future. Spain's main body narrative is not just about wealth and debt, but about the human toll of economic mismanagement and the universal lesson that prosperity, no matter how dazzling, is fragile when built on unsustainable foundations. Spain's financial rise and fall is more than a national story, it is a warning to the world. A reminder that even the most powerful nations can falter when prosperity is built on fragile foundations. From the glittering galleons that carried silver across the seas to the golden coins that filled royal treasury, Spain once seemed invincible, yet its reliance on external wealth, unchecked debt, and reckless speculation set the stage for repeated cycles of collapse. Centuries later, the echoes of that history resounded in the modern era. As property bubbles burst, banks failed, and protests filled Madrid streets, showing that the same vulnerabilities can destabilize economies across time. The final image lingers, imperial galleons fading into modern demonstrations, golden coins dissolving into scenes of rebuilding communities, symbolizing both decline and resilience. Spain's journey reveals a universal lesson that wealth without balance, governance without accountability, and growth without sustainability can erode even the strongest nations. As the video closes, viewers are invited to reflect on how history repeats itself, how the mistakes of the past can resurface in new forms, and how vigilance is essential to protect prosperity. Spain's story is not just about loss, it is also about endurance, adaptation, and the possibility of renewal, reminding us that while empires may fall and economies may stumble, the resilience of people and the lessons of history remain as guides for the future.